Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories, shall we? But first, thank you for subscribing to the channel and for hitting the like button. And if you haven't already, why don't you make this the video that you subscribe to the channel? And please don't forget to hit the like button for the algorithm. It really helps out the channel and would mean a lot to me. And now, let's begin with the first story, shall we? It's called "It Was All a Ruse." Last year, I vacated a rental property in which I had resided for a few years. It was a pretty standard affair. Real estate agency was helpful, no real issues to report. They structured their business with a local office, which a fake simply handled the affairs of the tenants, with a home office located elsewhere that handled the back end and finances. When I signed my lease, I decided to pay by bank transfer or electronic funds transfer. It's my preferred way, since I dictate exactly when the payment is made and how much. I can also set it automatically, so I never have to worry about it. Keeps the stress away. At the time, it was also the agency's preferred payment method. Well, partway into my tenancy, I received a letter stating that the agency was changing banks, and for the time being, they were no longer able to accept EFT payments. They would have all tenants migrate to a third-party payment system. I was already unhappy with this decision, since I didn't want to involve a third party regarding my rental payments. It seems so unnecessary. The kicker which really set me off was that this company charged a fee for making your rent payment. A little digging into the motivation behind this change was quite revealing. In my country, real estate agencies must use a trust account, a bank account to handle money on behalf of other people, the owners renting out their property. Typically, these involve a different fee structure and sometimes have a certain number of free transactions. Part of the agency's job is to reconcile these accounts to properly allocate money to the right portfolios. I did some research on this other third-party company to which I was supposed to make these rental payments. They handle rent payments and bookkeeping on behalf of REAs. It seems they don't charge the agency for the service, instead making the tenants pay for it. They also charge different fees depending on your payment method, which they conveniently don't advertise on the website. You only find out when your REA sends you the sign-up form. In essence, my REA wanted to save some time and money by throwing me and presumably the rest of their renting portfolio under the bus and make me pay a fee to pay my rent to a dubious third-party company. I was livid. Thankfully, my state saw this coming. In rental tenancy law, they specifically state that an REA must provide at least one method of payment that does not incur a fee beyond banking fees. My agency of course did this, but used the most obnoxious method possible: bank check. They knew people would be pressured to sign up for the system if their alternative was to write checks. But hey, they listed it as a valid form of payment, so cue the malicious compliance. I called my bank and immediately ordered a checkbook, shortly followed by an email to the REA stating I would be making my payments via check from now on. On my way home, I stopped by my post office and picked up some registered mail envelopes. Game on. I was actually excited to do this, as I'd never written a check before. I had a spreadsheet made with all the information I could record. Check number, mail date, delivery date, cash date, tracking number, amount. You name it, I kept it. I also kindly notified the REA that I had mailed the check and provided a tracking number so they could keep an eye on its delivery. Well. Several days after the first check arrived, REA's head office calls me. They give me a grand story about how this new system they've migrated to is so good and how safe it is and how it's so convenient. I let her waffle on for a while and simply tell her that I'm not comfortable letting a third party handle my rent payments. I then tell her I'll think about it and hung up. I had no intention of changing my mind. The next day I sent off another email stating I've considered it and I will remain paying by check. A few days before I mail my second check, yes, I'd only sent a single check at this point, I get another phone call. It's head office again. They are asking me to reconsider migrating. Out of the hundreds of properties in their portfolio, I was the only one who was paying by check. They also gave me some sub-story about how they had issues with fraudulent transactions with EFT, which is a completely bad excuse. My first thought was that it's really unfortunate that all these other tenants now have to pay a fee to have the privilege of paying their rent. But the agency offered a compromise. They said that they could set me up on a specific profile, which meant that the REA would pay the fee, but that I would be required to pay via direct debit. There's no way in hell I'm letting anyone have direct access to my money, least of all a real estate agent. Mind you, I'd never raised the fee as my concern. Bank check fees and mailing by registered post were slightly more expensive than the fees they would be charging anyway. My issue was the lack of control and the fact that the REA was effectively lying to me as an excuse to save money. I politely declined their offer and mailed off the second check. The real estate agency buckled. They had no leg to stand on. They openly stated the check was an acceptable payment method, then got all bad when their plan didn't work on me. For the effort they tried to save reconciling my EFT payment, they had to keep doing it, on top of accepting delivery of a check, cashing it and waiting for it to clear. They emailed me after they received the second check. We request that you make your rent payments via bank transfer from now on. Remember the first email they sent me, that they were changing banks and couldn't accept EFT anymore? I wrote back, my pleasure. As you've changed financial institutions recently, can you please forward me the details of your new trust account? The response I got back was oh so satisfying. Please just use the original details you were provided and we will let you know if they change. Busted, I caught you in your lie. I switched back to EFT as it was arguably more convenient for me, and despite my pettiness, I wanted to act in good faith. They never changed their banking information for the remainder of my tenancy, by the way. It was all a ruse. The next story is called Don't You Know Who I Am? I work for a water company carrying out repairs on burst water mains on an on-call basis of 1 week every 2 months. This particular job happened about 8 years ago. We get a call out that a major pipe feeding our large housing estate had burst and needed repairs ASAP. We head to the yard about 11 PM at night to collect our gear and get the plans and drawings of other utilities in the area of the work. We arrive on site, set up the traffic management as per regulations and speak with the inspector that called us out for an exact location of repair. Too much water to mark in the usual way. Then we set up our barriers and work lights around the work area. We get out our saw and cut a couple of meters of tar out, ready to start breaking the tar out of the road. Just as I started with the jackhammer, Mr. Sleepyhead comes stomping down the street in his slippers and dressing gown, looking rather perplexed. I took my ear protection off to see what he wanted. I could tell it wasn't to offer us a coffee. He then proceeded to tell me to shut that thing off and screw off until it's daytime. I explained that it was emergency work and that we couldn't have 600 properties get up and have no water in the morning, so it has to be completed now. And our work was fully understood by the council and the police. We then get the usual bollocks of, do you know who I am? I refrained from telling him that I knew exactly who he is. He is an irritating jerk who was stopping us from working. He then starts turning the air supply off so I can't use the jackhammer, which was ever so slightly annoying. He then starts that he knew the police chief inspector and would have me arrested if I carried on. I said that I have to carry on as per my emergency work order, and if he carried on obstructing us, I'd have to call the police to get the job finished. Needless to say, he did it again and said, call who you like, I'll have you arrested and sacked by morning. By now, I was tired, cold and wet and starting to get slightly irritated by his actions, so cue malicious compliance. I go back to the van and ring the police to explain that we are out carrying out emergency work and we are being prevented from completing it by one of the local residents and explain what he's doing to stop us working. He stomps off in his now soggy slippers and I poured a coffee. About 40 minutes later, headlights appear in the distance, so I thought great, just what we need so we can get done and recharge by 6 AM. Hopefully. Mr. Sergeant and Mr. Constable arrive and come for a chat to find out what is going on. And his words, why are we doing it after midnight in the first place? So I proceed to explain that the water main had burst and we need to get the supply restored by 6 AM to save around 1500 people having no water in the morning when they get up. He then realized the job needed to be done and hurdles off for a word with Mr. Sleepyhead. Before long we can hear the shouting from down the street. It then goes quiet and he comes back down to us to explain that the guy was a sandwich short of a picnic, a British euphemism for a nut job. And that they are going to have to hang around in case Mr. Sleepyhead started playing stupid games. So we fire up the compressor and start jackhammering again with my back towards the police car to save anything pinging off in that direction. A few minutes later, the machine driver toots his horn to get my attention. Mr. Sleepyhead had only come down the road carrying a piece of timber and was in the process of getting arrested for disturbing the peace. I honestly laughed so hard I nearly wetted myself. Who is that stupid when the police are around? Just in case anyone is interested, we were back on by 5:30 AM and had a coffee from Mr. Sleepyhead's neighbor, who was highly amused because he'd seen the whole incident out of his window. His only disappointment was that his surveillance cameras didn't pick up the video and he only had the audio to share with his mates. The last story is called Stay at the Slicer. I work part-time at Arby's. We are known for our roast beef, which is sliced to order with a slicer. Our beef and cheddar plus roast beef sandwiches are the most popular, so when you're in the kitchen, you're going to be using the slicer a lot. I am 17. Legally, you have to be 18 to operate it, but at my location, we don't listen to it at all. My general manager pretty much says, as long as you don't mess around with it, I don't care. We all know the dangers of the slicer and we know not to treat it like a toy. So I'm a great deal younger than the subject of the story, Rebecca, who was born in 51. She thinks teenagers are just incompetent children. She has it out for me, and on some days it feels like she is analyzing my every move to criticize me if I make a mistake. Why does she have a grudge against me? Because she has a god complex and I put my foot down. Today we had 2 people in the kitchen, me and Rebecca. Fun. Now our menu isn't completely composed of beef products. To name a few, we have the brisket, Reuben, gyros, which sometimes have beef, but I digress, turkey ranch and bacon, and a slew of wraps, and that's not even our full menu. That's just to give you an idea of how much more we have than the beef. At one point we got someone who ordered 4 briskets at once. One person can only do so much, so when I saw that Rebecca was struggling to handle it by herself, I decided to come over and help. I take the bottle of mayo from the tray and start putting it on the buns that required it. Rebecca saw this, and instead of working together, she decided it would be a good idea to rip the bottle from my hand, push me to the side and say, "No, you just stay over at the slicer. I got this, okay?" Okay, so I go over to the slicer. I look up at the monitor, I see that someone up at the front counter ordered 3 roast beef sandwiches, so I quickly make those and send them out. I look back up, drive-thru wants a beef and cheddar double. I make it and send it out. Look back up, nothing that requires roast beef. I do, however, see that there are several different sandwiches not containing beef. The type of stuff you have to focus on. The type of stuff you can't do on your own. I figured, hey, she wanted me to stay at the slicer, so that's exactly what I did. After double checking to make sure there wasn't anything that I needed to do with the beef, I sat down on the floor, brought my phone out and started browsing the web. About 10 seconds later, which doesn't seem long, but in fast food every second counts, I look back up at her. She is running back and forth, scrambling to get even one thing done because she's trying to do everything at once. I look up, a roast beef slider is up on the monitor. So I stand up, slice some beef, measure 1.5 ounces and set it on the counter next to her, since her side of the kitchen is where the slider buns and cheese and stuff are at. So it's her responsibility, since she wants that part of the kitchen to herself. It was at this point I made eye contact with her and smiled. It may have seemed like an "I'm happy to be helping you" smile, but it was more often "It's amusing to me that your instructions are backfiring horribly" smile. I then sat back down and continued fiddling with my phone. Now my manager Julie wasn't happy about the fact that Rebecca was pushing me away and not letting me help. Julie actually found my reaction to the situation funny, but she wasn't laughing while she chewed Rebecca out for being a jerk and shoving me out of the way. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.